Hey guys, I'm Madison Rothschild, and you're watching Inside the Minds of the Most Influential Women of Hollywood. Today, we're at the home of Carol Mendelsohn, who's the writer, executive producer, and showrunner of CSI. She also has her own company, Carol Mendelsohn Productions. How awesome is that? Well, let's go inside. As a kid, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, Madison, you're so welcome. I'm excited to do this.
What was your favorite TV show as a kid?
Well, my favorite TV show as a kid was Man from U.N.C.L.E., and it was Robert Vaughn and David McCallum. And David McCallum today is on NCIS. What I liked best was they had these devices, their pens, they could talk into them.
The thing is now there are these cool spy pens, and they have like secret cameras hidden in them, and you can just like put them, organize them in the little cup where you keep all your pens and stuff, but they actually like film everything, and they have a USB in them, and you can just plug it into your computer and watch all the footage. It's really cool.
Oh, I like that. I have to get one.
Did anything you did as a kid influence your taste in television today?
I think there were probably two things that I did as a kid that influenced, my point of view about television. One, I grew up in Chicago. In Chicago, everybody's bigger than life and everybody has a story, and my dad was an attorney. And my dad knew a lot of politicians and attorneys and priests and firemen and policemen. So I got to hear all these crazy, wonderful stories. And I think that influenced me a lot, because you get so engaged in people that are great storytellers, and I don't mean on the page or in television, they always have a beginning, middle, and end to a great story. So I think it taught me the structure of storytelling and taught me about how you have to honor characters and every part of their personality. And I think the other thing was I love television. And I remember the day we got a television set. And I would just stay up all night and watch the old movies. So I think all of that just influenced my taste and just my love of the medium. And I had some friends that dated cops, and I always wanted to be a police officer. And so I think that influenced me a little, but I have to say that when CSI happened, it was a whole new world and a whole new door opened for me. And the show is driven by science, and I hired, tech advisors that had been former CSIs in the LA Sheriff's Department crime lab. And I think that I was most influenced in CSI by them. And it was like going back to school and learning all over and figuring out first how science works, and next how to translate that into a script and make it entertaining and make it part of the fabric of a story.
And you had a love for writing as a kid. Did you write any short stories in high school? Either way, what type of stuff did you write?
I started to write, not, fiction, like 6th grade, 7th grade. But I have to say most of my writing when I was growing up was connected with homework and school and reports. And it wasn't until I was a law student and then a lawyer in Washington, D.C., when the writing I did then was so dry, documents and filings and briefs, that I actually started to take some creative writing classes and screenwriting classes. And then and at that time, I figured it's a muscle. It's like anything else, whether you play a sport or whether you play the piano or a musical instrument, you have to practice. You can't just say, well, today I'm going to write. You have to keep working at it. It's hard. And so I started to write some short stories.
Why did you go for a law degree when you went to college?
The law, as I saw it, was so much more fun and exciting than a regular law practice. So I was sort of drawn in by my impression of the practice my father had, which really bore no relation to real law practice. And I watched a lot of lawyer shows on TV, so I glamorized it and thought, that's a great profession for me.
You realized you didn't want to be a lawyer pretty soon after you graduated, but you started writing short stories after that, and they were getting rejected. But what have you changed in your writing since then that made it not getting rejected?
Well, I don't think that I'm the best short story writer, and you have to understand it was the beginning when I was just trying to find my voice. what I wanted to write about. And once I could do it both pictures and dialogue, then it all came to life for me.
The Biz. If you could start all over again starting in Hollywood, what would you change?
When I was starting in television, there were very few women in television. But I learned that you have to trust your instincts, and when you have an instinct and when you have an idea, be bold and say it. And I find that, at least back then, a lot of the women were didn't give voice to their thoughts. And now there are a lot of women in television, and all the young women are very strong and they are bold. But I think that it's always when you're in the minority, when you are starting out, you have that instinct to, if I'll just listen and absorb, and I'll learn, and then I'll have better ideas. It's not always true, and you should never hog the spotlight. But it's very important as a creative person that you give voice to that little voice inside of you.
Cool. And was there a female who was a really big influence in your younger years?
I would say the greatest influence on me were all the women, all the actors on television. Growing up, I was an only child. My best friend was television, and it was really these TV actors and their characters that influenced me.
Was CSI the big turning point of your career, and if it hadn't come, do you think you'd be where you are today?
I wouldn't characterize CSI totally as the big turning point. I think that I'd been on a number of shows and had a number of, I was with Stephen Cannell for many years. I was on Melrose Place for 5 years. But CSI is what it was the turning point in terms of elevating me from a writer on a writing staff to running a TV show.
Can you explain what a showrunner is and does?
I will try to explain what a showrunner is and does. A showrunner is more than a writer and more than a producer. Showrunner is the person ultimately responsible for the creative direction and the management and operation of a TV show. So in film, the director is always the king. The director's in charge. In TV, writers are in charge, and the head writer is the showrunner. So that's why you see, like in comedies, Chuck Lorre is the creator and showrunner. So most of the time, the creator or co-creator of a show will also be the showrunner, but that's not always true. So on CSI, the show was created by Anthony Zeiger, the original CSI, and they hired me to be the showrunner.
What do you think makes CSI so relatable to audiences, even 10-year-olds?
That a lot of young girls watch CSI every week with their mothers. It was like appointment TV, and it was something that they shared. And women today are going into the forensic sciences. And whereas there weren't very many women in forensics years ago, since CSI, the applications from women have exploded because it's really cool. But it's cool when you can see it. It's cool when somebody tells you how it really works. And on CSI, we had an episode about an electrocution, and part of proving the electrocution, as an experiment, we electrocuted a dill pickle, and with a young kosher dill pickle, if you insert, because of the salt content, if you insert electrical wires into it, it turns to a neon green. Now, none of our electricians or camera guys believed that we could electrocute a dill pickle and make it neon like a light. So, on the set, between takes of another episode, we had to do a demonstration for the crew.
I read that if you electrocute it, it's like a light and it turns into a nightlight.
Yeah, and you also probably didn't read It Stinks, but that's okay. But this is a seasoned crew, film crew, and they were so into it and into the science, they didn't believe it and show me. And I think that's part of the joy and the fun of watching CSI. Show me, and you show people how it works.
Looking back, do you think it was a good idea that they made CSI spinoffs?
I do think it was a good idea that we made the spin-offs. We had 3 great casts. We had 3 great crews. We were always in the top 10 or top 20. in the Nielsen ratings here in the U.S. We were among the top shows anywhere in the world, so no regrets.
And which one of the CSIs is the most fun to produce, and which one of the CSIs is the most fun to write?
Well, I am very connected and very attached to the original because I've been the showrunner of the original since the beginning, even though I was the co-creator of Miami and New York. So I would say, hands down for me, the original.
For both?
For
writing
both.
and producing?
For writing and producing, I love CSI, the original.
Can you give advice to any young woman wanting to write or produce?
Today, the best way to get into writing and producing is to get a job on the show, whether you're the office PA or a producer's assistant. Get your foot in the door. Do whatever you have to do in terms of a job, even if it's taking people's lunch orders and going and getting lunch and stocking the kitchen. If you're working on a show, people will say, come into the writer's room. You know, want to go see a cut. You can go down to the set and watch filming, and you just start to absorb it. So you can't sit at home and say, well, this is what I want to do. You got to go do it. And as a writer, you got to keep writing. You can't talk about writing. You just have to do it.
The genie question. And now this is the final question, and I ask this in every interview, and it's called the genie question. So, if a genie came to you and she gave you 3 wishes, what would they be?
This may not be the answer that you want, but this is really my answer. That I would give my 3 wishes away to 3 people because I feel so privileged to be doing what I'm doing and to have been able to sustain myself, pursue my passion for all these years, that there's nothing that I really want that I don't already have. And I would, like a lottery, like to give my 3 wishes to 3 people. Not any particular 3 people, but 3 people that really need a wish.
That's awesome. I've never heard that answer, but that's a really, really good answer. And I like that answer. And but thank you so much for being on the show. It's been really, really awesome.
No.
And I just think you're such an amazing person, and you're really kind, and it's been really nice to get to know you even more.
Thank you, Madison. It was great seeing you again, and fun to do this with you.
I'm Madison Rothschild, and you're watching Inside the Minds of the Most Influential Women of Hollywood.